he stops me in the driveway at some point after that. He says, "Hey, I didn't know you were one of those guys." And this was 1980, I guess. And I remember thinking, uh-oh.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
As I said earlier in the show, I left Pennsylvania as a teenager, went to Florida, and fell into an ATU organizing drive. And in any event, I rented a little apartment, whatever I could afford, for $140 a month, I think it was. And I had a landlord. So my landlord reminded me one day that he wanted my permission to go into my apartment during the day when I was at work so he could show it like he's going to sell it. And I kind of was panicked because I just thought, oh, no, he's going to sell the place and I'll have to move. And I kind of liked it. He was a good landlord. And anyway, I gave him permission. But, you know, I'm a union man. I'm a militant. I had my left-wing material and some posters and books. And I thought, well, I'm not going to clean up my apartment. I'm thinking, what am I afraid of here? It's supposed to be a free country. So it's my apartment, for God's sakes. I pay my rent. So I left all my stuff out. Anyway, he stops me in the driveway at some point after that. And he says, "Hey, I didn't know you were one of those guys." And this was 1980, I guess. And I remember thinking, uh-oh, is this good or is this bad? Does he think that, because unions, whatever they are, everybody has a pretty charged opinion about them. And he says, I got to show you something. So he takes me into his apartment on the ground floor. He lived right there. And he had his IWW red card tucked into his family Bible. And then he couldn't have been happier to tell me this story of how he was a member of the IWW in California, which is where he was from, but then he had retired from the painters union out there. But in his early career, he had been part of the crew that was represented by the IWW that was blasting the aqueducts down from wherever the water came from down to Los Angeles. It was essentially a hard rock mining operation to do this. And he just reverentially told these stories of how they controlled the job. That union was it. But remember, this was deadly, dangerous, low-paid work with a really unforgiving boss. And the union reflected it oppositely with the strength and militance that it had. And they used to exert. Now, remember, they were up in the boondocks and mining, and there's no town around. There's no modern way to get around. So they had the boss somewhat outnumbered, and they could strike and they could do these things. And the boss wasn't able to really resist as much. But anyway, he told these, just his eyes shined when he would tell these stories about how they would strike over the smallest things. But they weren't small to him. And his notion was, if you let the boss have an inch, he's going to take a mile, and we're not going to give him the inch. And, it was interesting because I think this is what I had finished by telling you, Jake, that he went on to join the painters union. And he in that conversation, he contrasted the two, that even though he thought that the IWW was a little too militant, it performed and it was legit. And he had great reverence for it. Now, the painters union was a little more kissy, a little more go along, get along. But he did get a pension out of it and whatnot. So there was good and bad on both of that. But yeah, that was the story of how they went on strike one day because the lunch didn't include a pickle, and that the union delegate always went to meet with the chuck wagon cook every morning to review the menu. And think about it. There was nowhere to go. There was no way to buy anything up in this boony. So if your boss didn't give you a decent 3 squares doing this work, you were going to, starve. So their thing was no pickle, no work. And, you look at that and some people might make fun of that or think, oh, my, that's a little bit too much. No, screw that. If you're one of those workers out there working for a low wage to begin with, dangerous work, and then the least you can expect is that the employer would make provisions to, feed you half decent. A pickle doesn't seem like a big deal. So, yeah, the strike struggle can be a magical thing in the right hands.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.